eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everyone? 60K, what can I say? The algorithm gods are smiling upon us with favor. Crazy stuff, crazy stuff. I feel like I haven't even put out a video. I haven't even streamed in a few days, and it just keeps going up. I'm blessed, and it's thanks to you guys. We have a very exciting video today. We're going to be looking at, well, this is going to be a reaction video to a fellow content creator, and I just thought this video that he put out was just phenomenal. Really poses some interesting questions, and I'll get into that a little bit more in just a moment because it's basically going to be the whole basis of the show. Michael Charles with $5 says, butter for my ears. Thank you very much, bro. We do love butter in the ears over here. And B. Willis has become a member. Thank you very much, sir. So a couple of little announcements. First of all, and I'm very excited to say this, the merch store link is working. Yep, you heard it here first. The thing is doing the thing that it's meant to do from the beginning a month later. Fantastic. So go and get yourself some merch, maybe even a nice touch grass tee here. In fact, I'll give you guys a quick little demonstration so you can see it correctly. Let me just fix this up here. Yep. There it is. The touch grass oversize. The oversized touch grass tee. These ones are the premium tees, okay? And they are substantially nicer. It feels like it's notably higher quality. And I really, really like them. And this is like a pine green color, touch grass. It's beautiful. It's probably my favorite. So you head over to the merch store if you want to get yourself some Polarity merch. The link is right there. It's also in the description. Let everyone know how much of a freak you are. And with that being said, we can get back to today's video. And what I'll do is I'll just remove the pinned message. But slap a like on the video, guys. Slap a like on the video for 60K and slap a like on the video for today's, not so much a guest, but maybe soon, we are going to be looking at the recent video from Jason Samosa. Now, I watched this video recently and I reached out to Jason basically just to say, dude, your video is fire. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. And honestly, if you guys enjoy my content, I think you'll enjoy this because I think the reason why I like it so much is because Jason puts his videos together in a similar manner to me. He kind of has an overarching point or theory, and he basically will weave together a bunch of supporting evidence and ideas that kind of support the theory that he's putting forward. And the video that we're going to be looking at today is called Hybrids, the disturbing connection between UFOs, genetics, and genocide. That's right. That's right. 420 Breezy celebrating 2 months as a member. What's good, nephew? What's going on, my bro? Thank you for being here. Shout out to you and the cat. So we're going to be getting into this. I spoke to Jason the other day. I asked for his permission to play his video on the channel. He was totally cool with it. And honestly, I did that because I just think it deserves more views. So his link is in the description for his channel. Go over there, subscribe to him, and show him some love because, yeah, I think he's doing some really good stuff. So we're going to watch this. It goes for about 50 minutes. We'll stop off along the way. I've also stripped the background audio from this, the background music. So there might be points where it goes silent, but the only voice that we're going to hear is Jason. So if there's anything that needs to be read out or whatever, I can just read it, but we'll be kind of stopping off along the way. Jason Momoa. Yeah, look, I mean, he does look like Jason Momoa. Yep, he definitely does. So I don't know what that's about. Maybe he's a clone. Maybe he's an offshoot, potentially. I don't know. But there is similarities. That's undeniable. Jason Momoa, but from the UFO world. That's what we're working with here. So let's get straight into this. Like I said, we can kick it off now because there's going to be parts where there was audio, but there isn't, just in case Jason was using any kind of copyrighted music. So we're really only going to hear from him. But let's pretty much get into it. So there was an agreement that disclosure could create mass confusion and that it might hotwire the apocalypse. Nobody would be able to halt the trauma.
Right now,
That's a
there
quote
are people in the defense
from Jacques Vallée, who, I won't interrupt Jason any further. He has also done some fantastic videos on Jacques Vallée, so go and check those out as well. But here we go. Take it away, Jason.
intelligence community who believe that you and me can't handle the full truth around disclosure. They believe that it is so explosive, so earth-shattering, that it must be served piece by piece in courses.
There's a lot of people who are impatient for information, and rightfully so. I get it. We're human beings. We want our information. We want it now. And why are you holding back? But sometimes you have to let the right people in the right positions digest information, right? Sometimes you can't expect a 10-course meal to be digested all in one bite. It just can't happen.
Do some people feel like whenever Lou speaks, they just think it's bullshit? Because I feel like that is the case. But I really do think sometimes he says things that are worth listening to. And I think that is a classic example of one of them. I really do.
Whatever you think about Lou Elizondo, his analogy of the 10-course meal is really useful.
Thank you,
I think
Jason.
we can all agree on what the first few courses have been. There's something in our skies and we don't know what it is. It's advanced technology, far beyond anything that we've created. In fact, we're certain it's not part of our inventory. We're also certain it's not Russia or China. It's just a genuine unknown. The next thing we hear is that these craft have occasionally crashed and that we've recovered some of those craft. Indeed, we've actually recovered the biologics, whatever that means. And recently, there have been more and more hints being dropped that our Western governments have some kind of agreement and relationship with these intelligences. So here's the question. What are the final few dishes that were waiting to be served? What are...
He's even talking in cooking analogies. I mean, this guy, he's one of us. Murad says he kind of looks like you. I mean, maybe we are long lost relatives. I'm open to it. LE with $2. What up, weirdo family? Love to all. Shout out to you, L. Thanks for the support.
Are the ideas that are so dangerous and so explosive that they can't be revealed until some context has been given? Well, today we're going to be talking about one of the dishes that we can certainly expect to be served up to us in the coming years. And that is the topic of human-alien hybrids. I must confess that for me, this topic has always just been one of many different fascinations waiting to be explored in my notebook. But having spent some time really researching this topic, I've come to the conclusion that it is one of the central pieces required to understand what's going on around us. As we proceed together today, you will see how this critical jigsaw piece in the modern disclosure movement causes concern, how it challenges our very sense of our human identity, and how it could create a philosophical backdrop that could be used to justify atrocities and apocalyptic conflicts. Our human population may be being primed for a revelation about human-alien hybrids. And when it comes, it will be explosive.
Great sense of humor too. Oh, Taris has just gifted 5 memberships. You absolute legend, sir.
The first question.
Thank you very much. Guys, if you just received one of those, make sure you say thank you. And if you don't know, you can only receive the gifted membership if you turn it on. So go to the 3 dots in your chat box. But thank you very much, Taris. You're a legend.
That should be on our mind as we embark on this topic is how we can know that human-alien hybrids is the next dish in our disclosure dinner. And we know this from a few different sources. Firstly,
I have to say, when I watched this first, I actually didn't catch on to how much dinner and cooking references he was making. And you guys know I use them all the time as well. So that is interesting. I feel like me and Jason, we're tapped in. We're tapped into the same source.
There's John Ramirez.
That's the word that Louis Elizondo can't say, that everyone in the Pentagon is expecting him to say someday, is that we're all hybrids. Things are happening on a, it's not a disclosure It's a scheduled dissemination. And so certain things have to be set up before other things can be revealed.
Ramirez was a GS-15, which is extremely senior in the defense and intelligence community and had held senior roles across multiple different DoD bodies and agencies. And his take was, when this interview was filmed a couple of years ago, that the topic of human-alien hybrids was off the menu for the meantime. But it's not just John Ramirez. When Tom DeLonge was speaking with 2-, 3-, and 4-star generals back in 2016, he brought up the topic of human-alien hybrids. This is what he says.
In those early advisory group, communications were fine, but when I touched on the idea of hybrids in the human soul is when all the communication stopped on that thread. So I have to look at that as something that I shouldn't have been going into at the time.
Now that's
Tom DeLonge, he got a smack on the wrist for talking about human alien hybrids. And I mean, he really just stopped talking about this stuff. Has Tom DeLonge even done a UFO alien related interview in the last couple of years? Maybe. I feel like the last one might have been when he was on Steve-O's podcast. But other than that, maybe he's busy with Blink-182 again. I don't know. But I really do think Tom knows things, even though he gets, people assume he got used. But I think as both could be true. Like, he did get used as a conduit to bring these CIA people into the disclosure scene. But that doesn't mean he doesn't know things at the same time. I think both can be true there. Rambro, you legend, gifting a membership, and that one went out to Neil Daniels. Congratulations, Neil, you little weirdo. Welcome.
2 different sources indicating that the conversation of hybrids is something that has to be delayed until other conversations have been had. But we have one more source who can double down on this as well. Here are the diaries of Jacques Vallée. Diana Pasulka was in San Francisco today. We were finally able to get into the more esoteric aspects of her book, which we hadn't dared discuss over the internet. This hints at levels beyond the usual patchwork of theological beliefs that feed people's aspiration for a higher world. Yet there's a darker side to her book. In a similar vein of absurdity, they didn't want her to mention hybrid creatures. Ramirez.
Diana Pasulka even got told not to mention the hybrids. It's crazy how much, we've heard about this topic in, I think, small doses, but it's never ever been the main course, if we're going to stick to food and cooking analogies, right? It's never been the main course, but it's always been on the plate. And this is why I find Jason's video so compelling, because he makes such a great case that it is going to be the next course. But what's interesting is, why do other conversations need to be had first before we can talk about that?
DeLonge and Pasulka have one thing in common. They have contacts with the people in the innermost sanctums of the defense and intelligence community. And all of them have had a consistent message. Disclosure is ordered. Disclosure is being served up in multiple courses. And the one course you are not allowed to preempt is a discussion about human-alien hybrids. And by now, you must be crying out, asking, why? Why is this conversation so sensitive? Well, let's break it down together. Ask yourself, how could humans and non-humans breed? The only way that's possible is if they both share enough common genetic material. That has huge implications. If humans and non-humans are breeding, it means that non-human intelligence isn't just some far-off civilization that we're meeting for the first time. This is the story of a relative, of someone or something that is connected to us, and we are connected to it because we share genetic material. If you go one step further, you can figure out what happens next. Did they create us? What does this mean about our religious institutions? What does this mean about our sense of human identity? What does this mean for how they perceive us? Are we children? Are we livestock?
Cattle.
These are not small topics. And yet, even if you were somehow able to navigate those dialogues, there is another layer to this which is potentially dangerous. If non-humans have bred with human beings throughout our history, there is a possibility that different groups of human beings, different demographics, and different races may have more or less non-human genetic material, meaning that it could be argued, potentially legitimately, that there is a genetic hierarchy on the planet. Now that should be ringing alarm bells. Immediately we've gone from a fascination about the possibility of a human-alien hybrid to a conversation about which races have a closest relationship to them in terms of genetics and what that might mean. You do not have to be a genius to see where this could go.
And this is so interesting, right? What he's saying is that the revelation of human hybrids and that some humans may have more of this genetic DNA, more DNA that comes from a non-human species, right? That's going to create a hierarchy. But when you look at, like, when you step away from UFO world and you look at, when you look into, I feel like I always talk about this and I hate that I bring it up because it's dark and I actually hate it. But when you look into the satanic ritual abuse stuff, you know, people like Nathan Reynolds, these people all speak about the fact that, like, they believe that their bloodline has a divine right to rule, and that their bloodline is like a direct descendant of, like, the Nephilim or something like that. They are direct descendants of the ones who interbred with humans. Like, that is why that's a thing, because that is what they believe. They're not using the term alien or human-alien hybrids, but they believe that they are of a superior genetic line. So what Jason is talking about here in terms of the UFO alien genetic disclosure side of things is basically the same conversation and the same problem as the things you hear from satanic ritual abuse survivors who say that behind closed doors, their family are worshipping these weird false idols and these weird gods, but they believe that they are of a special bloodline and they have a divine right to rule, and that's why they inbreed to keep their bloodline pure. These two things, to me, could very well be one and the same.
Because it wouldn't be the first time in human history that people have begun to believe that some races are objectively superior to others.
It's wild, right? Brad James, $2. Thank you very much, bro. Monkey Sausage with 5 says, being told that there are human hybrids would be more explosive than just aliens. It completely destroys the in God's own image creation narrative. Unless there are multiple gods. Unless we're talking about, you know, made in God's image is gods with little g's, and there are multiple of them. Because if you think about it, if man was made by being interbred with the Nephilim or these fallen angels, like we're told, that would mean that, like, the creation aspect kind of comes from little g gods. And that's what Tom DeLonge talks about, right? They, you know, the Greek mythology, Atlantis, little g gods are what created humans as we are today. At least that's the story that seems to be coming out.
History of human suffering and conflict. Tribalism is a consistent theme. The inability to see someone else with different politics, with a different religion, or potentially of a different racial or genetic profile to you as being your equal has been a consistent theme throughout our human history. Just look at European colonialism, this conviction that one race was superior to others, the same belief that enabled the slave trade, the apartheid regime in South Africa, and even genocides. That's just a short snapshot of our modern history, and it seems that again and again, human beings have somehow found themselves in a situation where their belief that some races and some genetics are superior has enabled them to commit the most awful atrocities imaginable. Even in our best moments, like take for example the discovery of evolution and natural selection, a huge step forward for science. Even then, human beings found a way to twist this and to use it to justify racial superiority. In the late
He's guessing and spinning a controversial yarn. I don't think so. I think he's posing a theory and providing evidence and ideas that kind of back up his theory. I don't think he's guessing, bro. I think he's kind of intelligent and he's putting together an idea and trying to get you to think in different ways.
Late 1800s, following Charles Darwin's remarkable discoveries, eugenics was created. The idea that we wouldn't just wait for natural selection, but we would proactively select superior genes and put restrictions on those who were believed to be genetically inferior. For example, by restricting marriages to those people, and even by sterilizing them. Simultaneously, at almost exactly the same time as eugenics was arising, Helena Blavatsky would claim to have had contact with hidden intelligences who had revealed to her a secret teaching about root races. Mankind is obviously divided into God-informed men and lower human creatures. The intellectual difference between Aryan and other civilized nations and such savages as the South Sea Islanders is inexplicable on any other grounds. No amount of culture, no generations of training amid civilization could raise such human specimens as the Bushmen, the Vedas of Ceylon, and some African tribes to the same intellectual level as the Aryans. The sacred spark is missing in them, and it is they who are the only inferior races on the globe. Between Blavatsky's ideas on the spiritual side and eugenics on the scientific, a fertile ground was created for the Nazis to come to power.
Shout out to my eugenics crew, by the way. Never forget. Matthew Stevens, you little freak, Matthew. Thank you very much for becoming a member. I appreciate the support. Check out the members only content. And Lauren Pegg with £2 says, I believe we are getting closer to the truth. Lauren, I think we are too. I think the veil is slowly being lifted.
The 1900s. And when they did, we all know exactly what happened. One of the worst atrocities in human history, which was enabled and written on a conviction that there was genuine human differentiation between the superior Aryan race and all of those who were holding humanity back. Following World War II and the understanding of what had happened in the Holocaust, eugenics and race theory, understandably, were no longer in vogue. Instead, we saw movements towards a more unified vision of the planet, the establishment of the United Nations, the creation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, decolonization, the slow waning of monarchies, groups of people who believed that they were genetically superior based on their blood and lineage, the civil rights movement, and then the fall of the Berlin Wall, pushing people into the 1990s with a lingering sense that maybe the world was going to be united in a way that it had never been united before. And it was with this intellectual, philosophical, and global context that we got these comments from President Ronald Reagan.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
This notion.
I feel like what Reagan is saying there is so telling. I actually included that clip and also 2 other clips of Reagan basically giving the same speech in my recent video. Like, you know, it feels like some of these people know things that they can't say, but they're saying it without saying it, and they're hoping people are awake enough to read between the lines. I really feel that is sort of what's going on here. 420 Breezy, $5. Have you seen the Skinny Bob video? To me and many others, this is the realest footage out there. The video disturbs because it feels real. I have seen the Skinny Bob footage, and I actually I know Chris Ramsey recently did an analysis on it, and I haven't watched it yet, and I want to watch it and potentially do a reaction video to it and give my own opinions. But on face value, I've always found the Skinny Bob footage to look real, but there are like 2 moments in it that something in the footage specifically I'm just a bit stuck on. But it is very interesting footage.
That Reagan shared isn't just an isolated thought of his own. Bill Clinton has said the same thing on a late night chat show with Jimmy Kimmel.
Maybe the only way to unite this incredibly divided world of ours. They're out there. We better think of how all the differences among people on Earth would seem small if we felt threatened.
The
Okay, Clinton, everyone knows you're a reptile, bro. No, I'm kidding.
argument is pretty straightforward. If something truly different comes towards our planet and we're forced to acknowledge the reality of non-human intelligence, if a disclosure moment happens, perhaps it will unify the planet by forcing us to realize that in the context of some other, in the context of something else which truly seems fundamentally different to us as a species, we might look at each other and realize we're all one. We're all together. We can finally see our similarities with the context of something truly different. It's a beautiful idea. And I wonder if you, like me, when I first got into this movement, it was one of the motivations I had for looking into the UFO phenomenon. I thought to myself, this is noble. I can push for something which could potentially be a unifier of the planet. And I still hope and believe that. But what if disclosure wasn't unifying? What if we discovered things about ourselves that could potentially be divisive? Like the idea that human beings have non-human DNA and that some people have more and some people have less. Is it possible that even if this was true, it might be considered explosive and dangerous in our modern context? Look around you. Look at the conflicts that are happening right now on our planet. On what lines are they drawn? Is it political? Is it religious? I'm sure you can make an argument that it's those things. But you'd be a fool not to recognize that many of them are also built on a foundation of racial differences. Could this world, the world that you and I live in, really handle such a revelation? Now,
we've got a few people in the chat that may need to take a cold shower. Elle, Heather, I'm looking at you guys. Get yourself in the cold shower, please. Pay attention. Pay attention. Stephen, you little freak, sir. You found the join button. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support, mate. Thank you.
Before you answer that question, let's just acknowledge something here. Right now, this is relatively theoretical. We're just throwing ideas around and projecting ideas into the future. So maybe it's time to get a little bit more specific. Maybe we should go and gather the breadcrumbs which have been left all over the disclosure floor to see if we can piece a picture together of what our governments believe about human alien hybrids.
I love it. I love the way he is like alternative thinking, posing the idea of what if disclosure isn't a good thing? What if like these things are just fun to think about? I love just trying to imagine things in different ways to the mainstream idea of what we think disclosure actually is.
Oh, absolutely. I do believe that genetics and biology play a major role in all of this in so many ways, and just trust me on that.
In 2007, a man called Chris Bledsoe, living in North Carolina, had some remarkable experiences. And as soon as he reported them, he found himself inundated with mysterious people from the defense and intelligence community, not just in his own country, but from people all around the world. They wanted to understand what it is that had happened to him. We know something remarkable must have happened to Chris Bledsoe and his family because of the caliber of people who ended up connecting themselves to him. The likes of Timothy Taylor, Hal Povermeyer, and even Jim Semivan. And it's Jim Semivan who held an extraordinarily senior post in the CIA who I want to focus on. Here is Ryan Bledsoe, Chris Bledsoe's son.
As it was explained to me by a man named Jim Semivan, who is a CIA program director who ran the clandestine operations for the CIA, meaning he literally directed the spy program. I was asking Jim all these questions. I was only like 21 or 22 at the time, and I was just asking him all these crazy questions. Why are you guys investigating us? What, why do you think this is happening to us? And, he and his wife are like, well, we think you're hybrids. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Jim, come on. Next question. Like just asking all these questions, right? And they were telling us like, study your bloodline, study your genetics.
Why was?
Because the story goes with the Bledsoes that when they first were, intervened. I don't know if I think it might have been Tim Taylor or someone came over and handed them these like instruments and they were able to feel like some kind of energy flowing through their body when they held both of these instruments. And that like to them, that was a sign that I guess if we're to take what Jason is talking about here, that the Bledsoes have some kind of non-human DNA or a certain amount of non-human DNA in them. So it's like, could that be why certain people see these things more than others, or even certain people can see these things at all?
That the Bledsoes had their remarkable experience. Jim Semivan suggests that it could have something to do with the genetics of the family and the possibility that they have non-human DNA, meaning that they are literally hybrids. You see how startling this is? The idea that some human beings on Earth could literally be described as hybrids because of their genetic material, and that this could be a critical and defining factor in who has encounters with non-human intelligences. Now, you might be thinking, look, this is just what some CIA guy said at a barbecue. And I wouldn't begrudge you for thinking that. But I also want to point you towards Lou Elizondo's book, Imminent. And once again, it doesn't matter what you think about Lou Elizondo. The most important thing here is to see what the message is.
This is why I really like Jason, because he's like me. You know, yes, we all love roasting Lou Elizondo because it's easy and he's made a fool of himself many times. But it's the same thing as like when it comes to people in politics and stuff, right? People let their idea of someone's character and things that, or perhaps they've done things that make them not like them or not trust them. And then that just becomes like a blanket wipe of the slate. Like, I'm never listening to you again. I'm never trusting you again. And I don't think that's right. I think you should be cautious. You should be, you know, careful with what you listen to, like the things they say and what you take in. But I don't think when someone gets something wrong once, or when someone makes a mistake once, you don't just get rid of them and never listen to them again. They still may have something of value to say. And that's why I really like what Jason is saying here. Maggie, celebrating 2 months as a member. Congrats on 60K, Josh. Thanks for the quality content. Love and light to all the weirdos. Thank you very much, Maggie. I appreciate the long-term support.
It's being trickled out of the Pentagon. Here is Lou Elizondo writing about his work with Dr. Gary Nolan. If psychic ability exists, Nolan theorized, it would have to be connected in some way to the codate putamen. The way he saw it, the codate putamen was the hardware that allowed these brains to perform their work. DNA was the blueprint for the hardware. The arguments for a genetic causation were not far-fetched. A Scottish psychologist had traced a gift of premonition through family trees in her own home county. In Scotland, it was common for a child to inherit his or her father's gift for second sight. Most interesting to me was Will and Gary's discovery of the connection to indigenous people of North America. It turned out that almost all the people in Will's studies, military and intelligence officials with remote viewing abilities and/or UAP encounters and biological effects, had Native American DNA, specifically Cherokee blood. Even more interesting, socializing this revelation led to also discovering that almost everyone who was involved with ATIP had this background as well.
Wow.
I did. Jay did. Hal did. John Robert did. And others did as well. Even stranger, key players on Senate committees, people who were very active in this topic, turned out to have Cherokee blood.
It's wild, right? Because, again, just to reference Nathan Reynolds, who talks about coming from a family who believed that they had a divine right to rule and that they are of
the implication
of supreme bloodlines, you know, for lack of a better term. He talks about how these same sort of belief systems are in the native cultures, like in the Hopi, and that, you know, in these Native American cultures, the idea of like skinwalkers and shapeshifters, like it's not these. This isn't me saying this. This is what Nathan Reynolds talks about. That skinwalkers, shapeshifters, in their culture, these things aren't like spooky or like weird, paranormal stories. It's just like, this is the way that it is. And that's wild.
Of this are frankly enormous. It's not just that individuals who have unique blood or genetic material, or however you want to describe it, are more likely to have encounters with non-human intelligences. It's also that those individuals may be more likely to have psychic abilities, and also may be more likely to have a proclivity towards certain kinds of work, hence all those individuals participating in the disclosure movement. Now, I want you to suspend any disbelief you currently have, just so we can go a step further and build this vision of what this genetic variation looks like. I want you to ask, when did this genetic inbreeding happen? If you are going to make the claim that some people have more or less non-human DNA, that also implies that breeding and the exchange of genetic materials has been happening. Wouldn't that make sense of a lot of alien abductions? Here's Jacques Vallée in his book, Dimensions. In other accounts, abductees of both sexes have described having intercourse with aliens. Many researchers speculate that such accounts prove that intruders from space are experimenting with human genetics. But they fail to point out that these modern stories are consistent with perplexing accounts that come to us from earlier times, from the oldest records we have. I wonder what you think of the abduction phenomenon. What could its purposes be? And whether you think that a genetic component might actually explain the furious work that's been going on. What if there is a large-scale program in place to slowly alter the genetic material of human beings, potentially for our betterment, or potentially to ensure that these non-humans continue to have access to certain types of genetic material? But probably what is most interesting about Vallée's quote here is his point that this intercourse and this genetic exchange isn't just something we see in the modern UFO phenomenon. It's also something that we see in historical encounters with non-human intelligences. Throughout Vallée's work, he documents and highlights the role of fairies, of angels, of demons, of all these different types of specters that linger with us in this world, whom some people have had encounters with throughout human history. And in the quote that we just read, Vallée highlights how intercourse and breeding and genetic exchange is a common theme throughout the modern UFO phenomenon, throughout the encounters that people claim to have had with fairies and elves, and even going back to succubi, incubi, angels, and demons.
Rogue question, but I am curious because I know that, I know that this is sort of more common than I guess you'd realize. But does anyone in the chat, or has anyone in the chat, ever felt like they've had maybe a weird encounter with something that you would call an elf or a fairy or a demon or something that we wouldn't traditionally say that's an alien? Has anyone in the chat ever had something weird happen? Because I've heard from someone a story, someone who I trust, a story with that involves one of those things. And, you know, it was very real. They were not under the influence of anything. They were not even old enough to be doing something like that. And I mean, me personally, I haven't, but I absolutely trust this person. So, you know, I think if that's just one person in my circle, I'm sure there's many, many others. And there's a lot of yeses going up in the chat right now. Do gingers count? Yes. Yes. If you have had an encounter with a strange, freckly, red-haired being, you have had a close encounter of the third kind. Justin Nance, you little freak, sir. Thank you very much for becoming a member. I appreciate the support.
And if you keep going further and further back into history, what do you find in our earliest tales? Nearly every single mythology has stories of the gods breeding with human beings. Hercules and Perseus both had Zeus for a father with human mothers. Gilgamesh from Mesopotamian lore was believed to have been 2/3 god and 1/3 man. Then you've got the Pandava brothers from Hindu scripture, who were also hybrids between divine beings and human beings.
Yeah, but Shady, we already knew that you weren't human. We already knew that you're a hybrid, so that's fine.
And then, of course, you've got Genesis chapter 6 from the Pentateuch. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Genesis 6 is one of the most mysterious passages from the entire Hebrew Bible. But in the context of a conversation about human-alien hybrids, it begins to glimmer in a new light. There is a tale here throughout all of our mythologies about a strange genetic event where gods from heaven came down and bred with human beings. And it led to these mighty beings, tall giants like Gilgamesh, mighty men of renown, the Nephilim, and heroes like Hercules and Perseus. Is it possible that somewhere in our distant past, humanity's DNA was forever altered by inbreeding between humans and non-humans? And is it possible that these rumors of psychic capabilities may in fact be the result of this DNA's lingering impact? Now, all of this just seems really far out. It's really hard to grapple with these ideas of ancient mythologies. You know, one day we're speaking about a CIA person that actually lives today and had actually said these things. And the next minute we're looking at a scripture which is from some part of our ancient history that we can't even have contact with. I understand why it might feel like these two conversations shouldn't go together. And yet, when Tom DeLonge made contact with 2, 3, and 4-star generals, what was it that they were pushing on him? It wasn't just genetics. It was also ancient mythology.
The Greek gods and Atlantis.
You
Roggy
start,
with $5. I'm a Reynolds and I defo feel like an alien. This society makes no sense to me. Beam me up. Hey, me too, bro. I'm not a Reynolds, but I feel you on that one, man. Thank you for the $5.
casually asking your advisors questions, sort of feeling your way along, not wanting to push it too far. But you ask some question and he gives you the answer. Instead of him telling you, yeah, we've got the flying saucers stashed at Area 51, or he tells you to take a look at Greek mythology.
Oh my gosh! You know, it was not only was it not what I was expecting to hear, it was told to me 3 different times from different people, and then I flew across the country and had a chance to meet somebody of the highest rank in multiple places. And right when I sit down and I have a chance to bring this person on board, and he stops me and he goes, "When I was a kid, I used to read a lot of Greek mythology," and he just stares at me.
Now, I don't know why the likes of General Michael Hayden or General Mike Carey or General Neil McCaslin might have been wanting to push on Tom DeLonge, specifically the idea of the Greek gods. But there are some things we can pull out which we can make sense of. Firstly, like almost any other Western ancient mythology, there is a flood story in the ancient Greek literature. In the Greek version, in the place of the biblical Noah or the Mesopotamian Atrahasis or Utnapishtim, there's the character of Deucalion. Deucalion is warned about the flood by Prometheus, one of the Titans, and ends up building a chest, which is essentially like an ark, which enables him and his wife to survive the flood. Interestingly as well, prior to the flood, just like in Genesis 6 and just like in the Atrahasis, the Mesopotamian mythology, there was a genetic monstrosity going on as well. Now, what I find especially interesting is how senior Air Force brass were encouraging DeLonge to believe in the legend of Atlantis.
And in some of those stovepipes, they've come to the conclusion, this is what's good. This is what's so crazy. I'm going to say it. That Atlantis was real. And something was very important about that time frame, and very important about who the humans were at that place.
What's going on, Magic? How are you, brother? He says, just went on a Tom DeLonge binge 2 nights ago and went deep with his knowledge. He is underrated in this field. I agree with you, man. I agree with you. And like he cops a lot of shit, and you know, maybe not everything he says is right. Maybe, you know, maybe he got fed some disinfo. But what I actually think it is that he got told a lot, and he said, like, if we were to go along with the analogy that Jason's using in this video, that disclosure is, a slow rollout of a 7-course meal. He started talking about what's coming in meal 6 and 7 before meal 1 and 2 was even on the table. So, and like Lou Elizondo said at the beginning of this video, you need to digest meal 1, 2, 3, and 4 before you can even look at meal 5, 6, and 7. It's like, it just doesn't work like that. You need it's a slow rollout. And like, when we think of it like that, it makes a lot of sense. I think Tom DeLonge does talk a lot of sense, but I think he says it in his own way, which is, at the end of the day, he's a skateboarding punk rock kid from California. Like, he's not going to speak in the same way that someone like David Grush does. You know what I mean? And I feel like that in itself can discredit him to people who have a bit of a narrow mind. But I think, I think Jason's is on the money here. And I've said this before on the channel, that just Lou Elizondo in himself is evidence that this disclosure has been a slow rollout since 2017. Because when Lou Elizondo came out in 2017, he was literally saying there are unknown threats in the sky. We don't know what they are. There are unknown threats. Then he's testifying at the hearing last year saying, yeah, there's reverse engineering programs. Yes, Lockheed Martin had a UFO. They tried to get rid of it, but the CIA intervened. But Lou Elizondo left the government in like 2016. So it's like, you haven't learnt anything since you were saying there are these unknown aerial threats. Like, you haven't worked for the government since then. But now, 7 years down the line, you're telling a whole new story about reverse engineering programs. It's like you were allowed to say X at the start, and then in a year you can say Y, and then in another year you can say Z. That's clear. If you look at the things that just Lou has spoken about, there is clearly a rollout of information, and it makes total sense with what Jason's talking about, in that this is a 7-course meal where you need to have your entree before you get the main serve. Lauren Pegg with £5. Was Jesus Christ an alien if born to a virgin? I'm not religious, but it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder too, Lauren. It's a very good question that I don't have an answer for, but I think you're on the right line of thinking.
Why would people from the Air Force and from the defense and intelligence community try and spread a story about how human beings might have been altered prior to a catastrophe in our ancient past? And does part of that story involve people surviving with this genetic mutation and living on here on the planet?
I don't think there's any audio for this part, so I'm going to read it. Well, I think I could have explained that a little better. Here it is spelled out. In ancient myth, the flood is often connected to the emergence of strange creatures caused by the mingling of the heavenly and human worlds. This is present in Genesis, but also in Greek and Mesopotamian myths, where the sexual blood of the gods is spilled onto the earth, creating giants, sirens, cyclopses, and more. So what has this got to do with Atlantis? It's another antediluvian myth, a pre-flood world, where the gods bred with humans and create a genetic middle ground. When DeLonge discusses Atlantis, he implies that he heard there was something unique about the people at that time. It sounds like Air Force brass are encouraging us to believe a unique strand of human genetics may have emerged at that time. I mean, I think we're all a little bit fascinated by what Atlantis is and what it means, and
could this explain why some royal
how it relates to us today?
Dynasties throughout,
especially when you think of, life being cyclical, like the Yuga cycles. Is Atlantis something that we could potentially come back to? Is it a way of living and a state of being that we actually have the potential to be? It's fascinating.
Human history have claimed a direct genetic relationship to the gods. Can this explain their obsession with blue blood and inbreeding to protect the line? Could this also explain the rise of ideas like Helena Blavatsky's conception of root races? Is it possible that people throughout human history have been trying to protect what they perceived to be an elevated lineage, which gives them access to non-human intelligences and psychic capabilities? This genetic conception by Blavatsky, which was later taken and mutated by the Nazis, seems like an idea that could never belong to our own defense and intelligence communities. I mean, there's like no way that the United States would ever get involved in any program which involved trying to create superior genetic material, right?
No.
And there's like no way that the United States government would ever have a program where they're using non-human genetic material to try and enhance human genetic material.
No.
Because that would tie a line directly through all the different conversations that we've talked about.
That would be crazy.
Well, I don't know whether you were paying attention during last year's UFO hearings.
I certainly was,
But
Jason.
here is Representative Lauren Boebert, and whatever you think about her,
Yep.
she's clearly heard something strange.
Yep.
And this is for all four of you. Yes or no, please. I have many questions I want to get to. Are there any known instances of recovered materials or technologies that are not of human origin and maybe connected to any advanced bioscience defense programs within the USG?
I don't know.
I wouldn't be able to answer that, ma'am.
I don't know.
I don't know.
This was the most anticlimactic UAP hearing ever, by the way. Just a bunch of dudes with a bunch of, I don't know. But this next question was the literal highlight of the UAP hearing. Guys, slap a like on the video if you're enjoying it for 60K and for Jason as well, who's just put together a fire video for us to watch.
Okay, so there are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense involving the manipulation of human genetics with what is described as non-human genetic material, potentially for the enhancement of human capabilities, hybrids.
Boebert just came out of nowhere with that. Like, that hearing was obviously so boring and anticlimactic. And that question got asked, and everyone naturally just went, no, I don't know, no. And, you know, and the hearing just moved on. But I remember when she asked that question, I was just like, excuse me? You've heard rumors that there is a department in the Department of Defense that is experimenting with human and non-human DNA to create super soldiers and hybrids? And we're all just going to get on with the rest of the hearing now and pretend that that never happened. Like, what the hell? That was the highlight. And it was a question, not an answer. That tells you how good the hearing was.
Now, I don't know who Representative Lauren Boebert is, but I do not think that she would ask a question like that in the context of a UFO hearing if she and other people around her hadn't heard some sort of rumors about such a program. I want you to imagine if it's true, that somewhere in a secret laboratory, they're trying to explore what happens when you use non-human genetic material on human beings. Are they trying to discover whether some of these latent psychic capabilities could be activated? Are they potentially trying to create some sort of genetically enhanced super soldier? I wonder if some of this could shine extra light on the comments of Vladimir Putin.
Mankind is currently facing many threats. Due to the genetic researches, it is now possible to create a superhuman, a specialized human being, a genetically engineered athlete, scientist, military man.
Значит, что человек приобретает возможность влезать в генетический код, созданный или природой, или люди с религиозными взглядами говорят Господом Богом. Вы понимаете, человечество может вступить и, скорее всего, вступит в ближайшее время в очень сложный и очень ответственный период.
Humanity is very likely in the near future to enter a very difficult and very responsible period of its existence. That is the singularity.
Своего развития и существования. И вот то, о чем я сейчас сказал, может быть страшнее
Worse than a nuclear bomb.
ядерной бомбы.
Wild. Stevie with $10. Wasn't the 50K stream 4 days ago? What the fuck, man? Good job. Also, all this talk about Atlantis, hybrids, half-gods, etc. sounds 100% like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. then Baal worship in Stargate. Coincidence? Brother, after 11,316 coincidences, I'm starting to believe that there may be no such thing as a coincidence. I really am. And, ask any detective, ask any police officer, they'll agree. And they will all say there is no such thing as coincidences. Andy with $5. What's going on? This isn't skateboarding. Don't worry. We'll be skateboarding again tomorrow. Guys, I've been streaming the new skate game on Twitch. The link below. If you like Twitch, if you like video games, go check out the link in the description. Oh, Mish.
Going back
60 pounds. You are too kind. 60 quid for 60k. Congratulations, you little weirdo. That is extremely generous, Mish. Thank you very much. And that's just so big. I don't even know what to say. Thank you very much, Mish. That's super kind of you.
The conversation we were having about Greek mythology, there's one theme that we didn't pull out. And that is that in ancient Greek mythology, just like in many other ancient mythologies, there are actually multiple factions of gods who do not like each other. Here is Hesiod's theogony. And the Olympian gods, lords of the dark clouds, arrayed themselves in opposition to the Titans in soul-destroying strife, both sides showing the work of their hands and might. An awful roar of dreadful strife arose. Mighty deeds were shown, and the battle inclined. The gods hurled their grievous shafts upon one another, and the voice of both armies came together in the ether as they cried aloud. For those of us who were brought up in the Judeo-Christian worldview, our conception of God is very often just that there is one disembodied being floating up in the sky. But in reality, almost all ancient mythologies, including ancient Israelite mythology, included multiple physical deities who were believed to have bodies like ours and were often at war with each other. We see this in Hesiod's theogony, as we just read, but also in the likes of the Mesopotamian mythologies and in the Mahabharata in Hindu mythology as well. The gods fight each other. They don't like each other.
I was told that there are numerous gods fighting amongst themselves and interjecting themselves into human affairs, that those myths are true. All those ancient stories, those are real.
There is not.
That literally lines up directly with President Reagan saying, what could be less, this isn't verbatim, but I'm paraphrasing. What could be less human than humans just constantly killing and fighting each other? Isn't an alien threat already among us? That's basically what Tom DeLonge said, that there are multiple gods and they are interjecting themselves in human affairs and basically keeping us in a constant state of war.
Not a single they here. Multiple, certainly multiple factions of the same species, if not multiple species. And all the complexity that brings, which might be our best hope.
Now, I know that I've been weaving around quite a few different conversations and topics here, so let me be...
You have, Jason, and I love it. I love it. Don't stop.
Be super clear about what it is that I'm pushing towards. Ancient mythologies, like the ancient Greek mythology, include this conception of multiple factions of gods who fight each other and do not like each other. Recent UFO whistleblowers are also hinting that the non-human intelligences that are here do not like each other and have factionalized. We're also being told that our Western governments have some kind of relationship and agreement with non-human intelligences, and it has been hinted throughout the disclosure movement that our geopolitical adversaries may have relationships with other non-human intelligences, perhaps some of those other factions. Now add in the genetic component. Now add in the interbreeding. What do you get? Maybe it's not just that we're going to be told that some people on the planet have more or less non-human DNA, which would already be explosive. But what if different groups, different demographics, different geopolitical adversaries have different non-human DNA? What would it mean for someone to say that we shouldn't kill our fellow human beings when we're also simultaneously being told that some groups of people on Earth are in fact partially non-human? What does it mean to say that all human beings are equal?
Like, imagine, what if the difference in the way that some of us look is because we are bred from a different little g god? i.e., you've got like the sort of like Mongolian, like North Asian look. You've got like Southeast Asian. They sort of look different. Middle Eastern, Caucasian, gingers. I'm just kidding. You guys, you're one of us. You're part of the Caucasians. But that natives. You know what I'm saying? What if that is it? I'm not saying it is, but like, honestly, who knows? And this is the problem, right? Now that it's just blatantly obvious that the new mainstream news just cannot be trusted. Just like Lou Elizondo, doesn't mean everything that's on the mainstream news is fake, although potentially might be. But what I'm saying is, now that the mainstream news has just proven time and time again that not only, like, it's not that it can't be trusted. It's not even that. It's that it has large companies. It has the news in their pocket. Like, it doesn't push news objectively. It pushes it with a bias that serves big corporations that essentially run the world. So we basically know that we just can't trust, like, mainstream news. And the problem with that is it slides the door so far open that it's like, well, I don't know what the hell to believe anymore. Like, what can you trust? And that's like a dangerous state of mind to be in, because that's how people turn into, like, you know, there's conspiracy theorists who kind of actually are just telling you the truth 6 months in advance. And then there's, like, you know, real conspiracy theorists who are off the deep end, okay? But that's the danger when the source of news and truth has been deemed untrustworthy and has proven time and time again that they actually don't have our best interests at heart with what they report. It's like, okay, I guess we just have to fend for ourselves now. Now we're just left to try and put the pieces together ourselves, and that leads to wild conspiracy theories that may actually not be true. Like the fact that maybe each race was derived from a separate god, because that sounds crazy. But I don't trust the mainstream news, so I don't know. I just got to work it out myself now. You know what I mean? It's dangerous. Oleka with $10. Please read Nothing in This Book is True, but It's Exactly How Things Are by Bob Frissell. It helps connect Atlantis, Lemuria, 46 and 2, Sacred Geometry, Meditation, Thoth, and the Pyramids, and more. And more. I nearly ran out of breath just reading out the things that it did connect, but there's more. I mean, wow. I feel like I have to get that book. It sounds like it's going to solve all of our problems. Thank you very much. And Achy Balls with $20. Hey, Josh, got my fingers crossed that my beanie is one of the anomalous variety. Collector's item in the making right there. Congrats on 60K, mate. Ripper. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. And hopefully, because if that is the case, you'll end up with 2. We'll get you another one. Don't worry.
Well, we're also told that some human beings have the genetic material from the good non-humans, and some human beings have the genetic material of evil non-human intelligences. What does it mean to say that we shouldn't go to war and kill the population of another country when we're also told that they are allied and interbreeding with non-human intelligences who want to destroy us?
There are groups of humans working with this intelligence, and this would not be your typical Western democracy, that are working with these groups either by proximity to them or directly with them to fix something within their DNA, help them proliferate on this planet.
Once again, my goal here is not to convince you that these things are true, but to highlight quite how explosive the revelation of human alien hybrids might be, and the implications it may have for our geopolitics today. And I wonder if some of you are looking at the genocide which is happening in Palestine right now and asking yourselves, could this be related not simply to our own geopolitics, but potentially also to the politics of non-human intelligences? Here is a passage from Tom DeLonge and Peter Levender's book, Secret Machines, Volume 2, where they tell us exactly what they were told by one of their advisors.
Crazy, right?
One of our informants suggested we look more closely at the role that genetics plays in the narratives associated with the phenomenon. He suggested that we entertain the possibility that acts of genocide in human history had an ulterior function, if not an ulterior motive. In other words, there were some human genetic characteristics that had evolved over time that were less amenable to the much-rumored alien hybrid scenarios that contactees have reported with consistency over the past few decades. We were asked to consider that some ethnicities might be carriers of specific genes that were resistant to alien manipulation, and that genocide was an alien-inspired or alien-directed program to weed out any potential problems, obstacles to alien control lurking in the human gene pool as it had evolved on our planet.
That's
Conversely,
wild.
what if some of the genetic mutations that were weeded out of the human genome due to natural selection, i.e. in order to survive on Earth, may be necessary to enable us to live off-planet? At first, this sounds like warmed-over eugenics, the type of race science that justified the worst excesses of the Nazi regime. Perhaps it's not for nothing that some contactees report the existence of so-called Nordics. Looked at more closely, we can see that some races and ethnicities are carriers of genes specific to certain illnesses, such as sickle cell anemia among African Americans and Tay-Sachs disease among Jews. What if there was another gene or genes that have no particular function or pose no discernible threat as far as we are concerned, perhaps hidden within our so-called junk DNA, but that would be considered dangerous to an alien race? In other words, what if the human race or a certain ethnicity was evolving alien antibodies that would render us invulnerable to an alien hybridization program, or whatever else the others had in mind? What if we were developing intellectual or physical powers that would enable greater awareness of their presence, or provide us with some greater degree of protection against their intentions?
Wild, right? Wild questions to consider. And especially, you know, it like when we think about it like that, and when we also look at the idea that it's, you know, and like this isn't really just a theory, like this is kind of out there as public knowledge that, you know, what's happening in Israel is like the intentional fulfillment of prophecy. Like it's a holy war. It's not on the surface, but like the deep underlying motives for what's going on in the Middle East is a holy war. So if that is the case, that could align very closely to what Jason just read out there. That this could be motivated by a higher intelligence, something that seeded the religion, something that is responsible for the scripture and the prophecy, and that what is happening in the Middle East is their attempt to fulfill that prophecy on behalf of the ruler, for lack of a better word, that they believe in or that they follow.
It refers to one of our informants. We are dealing with some of the most senior people from the defense and intelligence community who are directly connecting human genocides with the intentions of non-human intelligences. You are not crazy to look at what is happening in our geopolitics today and to ask the question whether or not there may indeed be some deeper reality at play, and that this potentially could explain why our world leaders seem completely unable to challenge the indefensible. And here in this quotation, we see that people inside of the defense and intelligence community are hinting at the idea that a certain ethnicity might be developing unique genetic abilities, which makes them more able to withstand the phenomenon. And as I say that out loud, I find myself simultaneously trying to imagine if this could be true, and also asking myself, could this all just be one enormous Psy-Op designed to give favor to a unique ethnicity which claims to have superior genetics which will enable the human race to move forwards? I don't want to say anything more about that, because those of you who are wise enough to look at our world and to ask how non-human intelligence may be connected to what we're seeing around us can obviously piece the jigsaw pieces together. What I do want to do, though, is to add a couple more critical details to this huge narrative that will show you quite how precarious our situation may in fact be.
Who's putting the pieces together? Who's putting the jigsaw pieces together? What are we thinking? I know a few of you guys have the pieces. 35 farm with $10. I think NHI has made us aware of the falsehoods of legacy media to open our mindsets to receive direct downloads from them of truth. Our intuition is a download. I agree. Well, I agree with the fact that our intuition is a download, and I agree with the fact that our intuition and our instincts always, like, they speak the truth. It is the truth. And I also agree that there is something going on right now that is helping people, like some kind of consciousness elevation. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain it. But it seems like universally, people are becoming more in touch with their intuition and more in touch with their instincts and being able to differentiate it. But I also think through... like social engineering, and I'm talking about like memes. I'm talking about AI, which I'm probably going to do a video on in the next couple of days. I think the truth about what is going on in the world, which is delicate, is being revealed through these memes, through AI. These things are waking people up to what is actually going on, because I think the people who are in charge can't say it. They can't say it because bad things will happen to them. Bad things happen to people when they start saying these things. And I think they're trying to make the world aware of this through literally things like memes, through AI, through subtle ways of pulling back the curtain without directly saying it. And it's up to us to put those pieces together and be brave enough to talk about it.
Think about the idea of non-human intelligences breeding with humans. I wonder if in your mind's eye you're seeing reptilians or tall whites, something that looks fundamentally different to us, but may in fact share some genetic material with us. But I'm assuming that many of you have also heard rumors that some non-human intelligences actually look just like us. And in fact, there are so many people who talk about this that it's almost impossible to avoid this theme.
Robert Bigelow said to me, "They're walking among us."
Yep.
I said, "What do you mean they're walking among us?" He said, they're walking among us. They live right here.
Different races are coming here, and they're trying to win and against
So there's
each
more
other.
than one
Oh
race.
yeah.
How many
That's the
different ones
universe we're talking about. I don't know how many. I don't know.
But there's a bunch of different creatures and they all have the same sort of technology.
Yeah, and some are very human. Some look just like you and I.
What happens when you not only have human beings who have non-human DNA, but you also have non-human intelligences who look identical to the human beings on this planet? What happens if we're trying to deal with those non-humans? What happens when the governments of the world tell us that although that group of people in that country look like human beings, they're in fact non-human intelligences who are here to harm us? This is...
Yeah, I mean, wow. Imagine if this idea of they walk among us, they look just like us, like Robert Dean said, they could be in a restaurant, they could be in the movies, you wouldn't know, they look just like us. But imagine if we find out that they don't just look like us and mingle in everywhere. It's a specific race or a specific group of people. Maybe not all of them, because that's probably a blanket statement, but the ones who are protecting their bloodlines, the ones who are intentionally interbreeding so they don't, the people who believe they are like pure blood with a divine right to rule. Imagine if we find out that, I'm not going to give an example, but certain races or certain groups are non-human or actually have some level of non-human DNA, and they are doing things that do not have the best interests of everyone else at heart. Peter says we are this close to the loony bin, and yes, that is why you must slap a like on the video, because when the stream is over, that like button will give you a 20% discount at your local mental health institution. You don't want to miss that. You're going to need it.
It's like the Salem witch hunt on steroids. There is the possibility that if these ideas are revealed and disclosed to the public, whether or not they're true, that absolute chaos and carnage could ensue. People with bad motivations looking to divide the planet could easily weaponize such a concept in order to demonize entire races.
So Rothschilds and Rockefellers, I think you could be onto something. You're in the right ballpark.
And the sense of fear and panic would be so vast and so existential that it would make the post 9/11 era look like a walk in the park. You only have to look at a brief snapshot of our human history to understand how these ideas could be potentially devastating.
It would make post 9/11 look like a walk in the park. But that's why this is why I think there is this big cultural shift going on, and this stuff is coming out right now. And some people, I think, are brave enough to talk about it. I think some people talk about it in the wrong way. I think some people talk about it in an inflammatory way that causes more harm than good, because this is a delicate situation and you can't talk in blanket statements. But I think it's coming out through memes and it's getting injected subtly into the culture. So it's almost like when it happens, people aren't going to flip out. People are prepared and people understand what's going on, how deep it runs, and how far back it traces. Because I think people need to wrap their head around that to truly understand the gravity of it. Oleka with $2 says, get the book, Josh. It's exactly how things are. I think I'm going to have to. Hey, if you've got a PDF version, though, hit me up.
True that non-human intelligences have been breeding with humans, and that some human beings do have non-human DNA to a larger proportion than others, and that maybe some of those human beings have different non-human intelligence DNA in their genetic code. Well, you can understand why the defense and intelligence community would be really cautious with revealing that information. But what if this idea, even if it is true, what if it is used to drive a geopolitical agenda? What if it is used as the ultimate justification for the undefensible? What if this single piece of information could be weaponized by those in power? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the truth is, but I do know that there is overwhelming evidence that the defense and intelligence community is preparing to tell us that some human beings are more naturally elevated in terms of their genetic profile than others.
And are they on our team or are they against us? That's the big question. That's what's going to make all the difference, right?
There is one final concept that we've got to add to the mix before we conclude, and that is the hierarchy of beings. Here is Diana Pasulka talking about Timothy Taylor in her new book, Encounters.
We love the hierarchy of beings.
When Tyler taught others about his research, he often presented his taxonomy of beings, which was his cosmological worldview. In this hierarchy of beings, God was placed at the top. After that were angels, then off-planet beings. Off-planet is the term Tyler used for extraterrestrials. Below that were certain factions within intelligence communities. Below this were ordinary people, and then animals. He also had a phrase that he used very often, which was connect the dots. When I asked him about the factions of people within intelligence communities to whom he referred, who in his estimation were higher on the cosmological hierarchy than regular human beings, he told me to connect the dots. For those of you who don't...
I've been saying this for ages. I've been saying this for a long time now on the channel. Non-human intelligence runs the world. It's as crazy as that sounds, and yes, even myself will be taking a 20% discount at my local mental health facility after this stream, obviously. As crazy as it sounds, if we can just put that aside for a second, it actually makes a lot of things make a lot of sense. Because like Reagan said, what is more inhumane than us? Literally since World War II, we have been at war killing each other in some form or another. And it's not even just that. Like, that's just one side of it that it doesn't make sense. Like, why can't we stop doing that? That's weird. Can we stop killing each other for a couple of years? Apparently not. That's weird. But then you've also got, like the last video that I just did, which if you haven't seen, go and check it out. I did a big deep dive into the secret space program because I believe that what Dylan Borland saw at the latest UAP hearing, these giant triangles glowing this golden plasma, that's not a one-off. These triangles and these craft coded in this plasma, this is something that is seen a lot. And a lot of the time it's around US military bases. And there's no defensive reaction, by the way. They're not scrambling jets. They're not cutting off Love Island to say, hey, aliens might be here. Everyone bunker down. No, it's actually, if you speak up about it, you get threatened with your life. That doesn't sound like a national security issue to me. That sounds like you're covering up something that you already know about, like the fact that your boss is an alien. Literally, if we can put aside how crazy the concept is for a moment, you will realize that it actually makes everything else make a lot of sense. I'm telling you. Larissa Kellstrom, you absolute legend. Thank you very much. She's gifted 5 memberships. Can we get some love in the chat for Larissa and the 5 little freaks that have just joined the clan? Welcome, guys.
No, Tyler is a pseudonym which is being used there for Timothy Taylor, the individual I mentioned earlier. And Timothy Taylor...
L Asteroid says, I'm so confused. Me too, bro. Me too.
Taylor is an individual to some extent shrouded in mystery, but whom there has been more information about recently. And one of the things that has been said by multiple people is the level of his clearances and access throughout the defense and intelligence community and even beyond into foreign governments and foreign institutions is profound, remarkable, and unprecedented. This is an individual who seems to know everybody and have access to everything. And he is sharing this idea of a taxonomy of beings, which is obviously intended to be shared with the disclosure movement. Earlier on in the quotation I read you from Jack Vallee's journals, where he documents his conversation with Diana Pasulka, it's very clear that they were telling her what things she can reveal and which things she cannot. And here in this book, we have the revelation of a taxonomy of beings, which clearly is supposed to be being shared right now. And within that taxonomy of beings, what do we find? Well, we find that some human beings are more elevated than others in the cosmological hierarchy. This is literally coming from the inner workings of the Pentagon.
Remember how we said like factions of the intelligence agency? Factions of intelligence agencies? And remember how the CIA was created 6 or 7 months before the state of Israel was created? And now Israel is trying to fulfill like a prophecy and waging like a holy war? And Tim Taylor said, connect the dots.
Idea that some human beings are more elevated. And when Pasulka asks who those individuals are and why, he simply says, connect the dots. I wonder if you feel that we may have connected the dots in today's video. And perhaps you might be thinking to yourself, well, what does it matter that Timothy Taylor says this? This is just one person sharing an idea. Well, then let me read you one more passage from Lou Elizondo's book, Imminent. One day, I arrived at our group office to find Jim Lakatsky and a couple of others kicking around ideas for a chart that Jim had conceived. At the top was the word God. At the bottom was humans. In the middle was angels. Jim theorized that if the distance between humans and angels is large, Was it not possible that other beings existed between the purely spiritual angels and the flesh and soul creatures known as humans? Was it possible an entire ecosystem of divine and semi-divine life forms existed in an invisible ecosystem?
What an incredible thing to consider, right? Like, you know, we often think like, oh, we're just humans. And maybe there's aliens out there, okay? They're humans, aliens, angels. You know, maybe they're not all on the same scheme, but we see them all as just, they're in their own category. They're their own thing. But what if it's actually like a linear transition between them? And you can be somewhere between human and angel, or somewhere between human and a non-human intelligence. Like there are, you don't, it's not black or white. It's not, you know, nothing in life is black or white, right? It's always a shade of gray. So it's a crazy thing to consider, right? What if on face value, people on this planet all look the same, but our soul, our spirit, our state of being is somewhere elevated beyond human, but perhaps not quite at a stage where we would be considered something else. It's a wild thing to consider.
Once again, we see the same model being propagated here by Jim, who is Jim Lakatsky, and then being spread by an individual who is clearly part of a disclosure narrative, Lou Elizondo. What is it that these people want us to believe? And why is it that we're integrating our understanding of non-human intelligences into a religious framework? Why wouldn't we integrate the idea of religions into a framework of non-human intelligences? That might seem like semantics, but it's actually a profoundly important point. By taking the disclosure movement and forcing it within the context and language of Judeo-Christian religion, you're opening the doors for all sorts of confusion. And when you combine this with an idea that some human beings are higher on the cosmic hierarchy, and then you connect the dots with the story of human-alien hybrids and genetic material, you begin to get a deadly cocktail, which not only includes some of the dangerous ideas from our human history about genetic differentiation, but also integrates religious and spiritual concepts, specifically Judeo-Christian religious concepts. We are not renaming angels with a scientific taking the Judeo-Christian terminology of an evangelion, a messenger, an angel, and integrating that into modern ufology. Genetic experimentation, genocide, a religious taxonomy of beings. I think that we can connect the dots. And I think we can understand why people like Jacques Vallée may believe that disclosure, whatever that means, could hotwire the apocalypse.
Shout out to Jason Somoza. What a fantastic video. Thought-provoking, intelligent discussion, great research, well put together, and asking the tough questions and talking about the tough topics. All the things that I really respect. If you're not subscribed to Jason Somoza, make sure you do. His link is below.
The way to the end, please do the things like, share, subscribe. I've also created a Patreon recently if anyone is interested in that. Of course, if you're not, that's absolutely fine. Just please do like, comment, and share the video. It really helps. And the comments especially just keep me going and keep me motivated. I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers who are here. I hope you really enjoyed this. And I guess all that's left to say is, my name is Jason Somoza. This has been Jason Somoza's Ufology Moments. And until next time, cheers.
There we go. That's his channel there, guys. And like I said, it is linked below. I loved it. Fantastic video, thought-provoking, and it just I think Jason is on the money with where things are going, and it's important to talk about these things, I think. And I think, like I said, connect the dots. I've talked about this stuff on the channel before. We probably don't need to go there in this stream. We've got a couple of interesting videos coming up that are maybe going to keep talking about it because, like I said, at the end of the day, the motivation for me to make this channel was not just about UFOs and stuff like that. It's about the fact that society seems to be in chaos, right? It seems like we are just, we've lost the ability to get along. Things are chaotic. No one knows what to believe. There's 50 different versions of the truth. And I want to, not that I think I can solve that, but I want to be, if I can help in a way to like decipher what is the truth and how we can fix it, then those are the conversations that I want to have. And I think disclosure, like I've said, I think the real disclosure is going to be getting to the bottom of that. Like, what is keeping us in this constant state of chaos? I think that is what disclosure is. Is finding that out. And that's why it's so difficult, because potentially the people that are, or the thing that is keeping us in a constant state of chaos is also the keeper of the gate. The one they have the ability to stop disclosure moving forward, because that's going to relinquish their control. So who is that? Well, I think a lot of us have already sort of connected those dots. But when we talk about these things, we do have to be careful, because you can't paint everyone with the same brush. There are lots of good people in the world, but there are a small group of people that seem to have a lot of power and that may be not acting in the best interests of the rest of humanity. Perhaps they're acting in their own interest, and perhaps an interest that is in a religious context as well. So I think this is where the conversation is going. I think it's coming out through, I think we are being socially engineered to understand this, because the people who we go to for our news are not allowed to say it, because bad things happen when they say it. And I think we saw that recently. Stephen Shigley has gifted a membership. Stephen, you little freak. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the support. 35 Farm with $10. This is a great show, Mr. 60K. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. And the comment section with $2 says Israel. Thank you very much for the $2, bro. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Just one more shout out. We're wearing the Touch Grass oversized premium tee printed on AS color. And let me tell you, this tee is cozy, it's comfy, it's heavy, it's good quality, nice long sleeves. Go and check it out. The merch store is working. The links are fixed. We are up and running, full steam ahead. Go and get yourself some merch. But I realized that we didn't even really get a little proper hello to Suki. So I think we should do that. It would be kind of rude of us if we didn't. Suki? Suki? Say hello. You didn't really do much in today's show. Yep, you're not really interested. That's okay. That's okay. We can't be amazing every day. She's amazing most of the other days. No, this isn't a long sleeve shirt. It's a short sleeve, but it's a tall tee, so they have longer sleeves, right? Guys, thank you. Be good, be kind, touch grass every day, like the shirt says, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Eventually, people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have